In this movie, we're going to talk about borders. We're going to begin by looking at the preset border commands in the font group on the Home tab, and then we'll look at some border formatting that can come in handy when you're totaling and subtotaling numbers. We're going to use the drawing tool to draw a border. We can draw a border grid. We can erase the border with an eraser tool. We can draw diagonal lines, and we can select a color and a style for the border as well. So borders. Before we start drawing some borders, I want to turn off the grid lines because the grid lines are going to sort of get in the way from cleanly seeing what effect formatting these cells with borders has. And to do that, we go to the View tab and clear the checkbox in the Show group that says Grid Lines. This, by the way, is a nice way to clean up your worksheet. When you've developed some content that you're presenting on a schedule and it's sort of in a finalized form, you can get rid of the grid lines sometimes. It just makes it look more professional. So I'm going to go back to the Home tab because we're going to focus on the border command in the font group. But before I do that, I'm going to select this area, press the Control key and select that area, which is just a cell. Left-click the drop-down, and we're going to look at the first four commands, the bottom border, top border, left, and right border. I can left-click each one of those commands sequentially, bottom, top, left, and right. And what we get, whatever area we've selected, whether it's several cells or one cell, we'll put a border on each one of the sides based on the options that we selected from that drop-down. We did the top, the bottom, and the left and right, so we boxed out the entire regions that were selected. So how do you put a border around all the cells that you've selected? Well, you go to the next option and choose All Borders. You can also put a border on the outside of a selected region so you don't have to press top, bottom, left, and right. And you can make that border thick if you want to as well. So the next thing we're going to do is use some of the border formatting options to make it visually apparent the mathematical relationship between some numbers in a schedule. I've got some numbers scattered around here, 65,000, 35,000, 100,000. Well, the 200,000 is the sum total of the numbers above. But you can't readily tell that by looking at those numbers. Well, the border options can help with that. I'm going to go back to the drop-down, and I'm going to skip the double bottom border for now and go to the thick bottom border. And that makes this look more like a mathematical equation. So it looks like the sum total of the cells above equal 200,000. We also have a few other options. A top and bottom border, a top and thick bottom border, and going back to one of the prior options, I'm going to first put a thick bottom border here and then go to the 200,000 and put a double bottom border, which might be good for a grand total on a series of numbers in the column for which there are subtotals. And we've got one more choice, the top and double bottom border. So the next thing we're going to do is draw a border. There's a drawing tool in this drop-down that enables you to draw a border. When we click it, Excel displays the corner of each one of the cells, which is helpful when you're trying to decide where you're drawing your borders. So I can start here, left-click, drag down, and release, and I've drawn a border exactly surrounding that area with the blue fill. I'm going to escape. Another option is to use a drawing tool to draw a border grid, which will frame out each one of the cells that we select. Escape. The next option on this drop-down is an eraser. So we can erase any border that we have on this worksheet with the eraser. I'm going to escape again, and we're going to draw a border one more time with the drawing tool. And after you use the drawing tool, you can press Control-Shift, and you'll get the eraser presented to you. So if you need to make some changes, you can. Releasing that, we get the drawing tool again, so I can recreate a box somewhere. Control-Shift, get the eraser, and clean up my borders again. I'm going to escape to get out of that. We also can draw a diagonal line. Get the drawing tool again. When we go from upper left-hand corner to lower right-hand corner, we create a diagonal line. We can control the color of the border, and we have all the color options that we have when we have an option to make something a color. We have the theme colors, the standard colors, and we have more colors. We have this honeycomb structure. We can make a custom color using the RGB, red, green, blue, or the HSL, hue, saturation, luminosity. All of that we'll save for another movie. We'll keep this simple. We're just going to use a standard color, and I'm going to choose a theme color. Let's pick one that's very different. And when I draw a border, that border is going to be the color that we just chose. I can also select a style and draw a border using any one of these styles. We'll select this one. And the color is remembered. Once you set a color option up, that's the color that the border will be every time you create another border until you change the color again. In fact, when I select this area and choose one of the other choices, I still get that same color. And the color and style are created at the time you do the border, but you can create another border if you want it to be a different style. So if I want to create a border with a different style than what I just drew, I select it and just draw over the prior border. And finally, the last thing on this drop-down list is more borders. This is the old dialog box, the Format Cells dialog box on the Border tab. We have all the options on this dialog box that we just went through. They're just presented differently. So those are borders. We looked at the preset border commands. We have some border format options that allows us to visually see what's going on with some numbers that are being subtotaled or grand totaled. We can use the drawing tool to draw a border, to draw a border grid, and we can convert that drawing tool into an eraser. We can draw a diagonal line with the drawing tool, and you can select a color and a line style for your border as well.